Alright, so back with another video. This time I wanted to talk a little bit about labels in society and the importance of labels and the necessity of using them to help humans to determine what is what, or to derive meaning from certain aspects of life, or just to create understanding, simply put, at times. But there are also there's also, I believe, this phenomenon in society that has come to this place where there's over labeling. Some things it's necessary and important to know why they are that, and some things it's just convoluted. That's the word that came to my head. It becomes very convoluted, and I feel like it's coming from a place of ego, and I feel like humans are making their lives way more difficult than they need to. So I was just sitting here thinking, and the reason I wanted to make this video is because I was just sitting here thinking, like, I was thinking about my masculine and feminine energy. And I was thinking how recently I've definitely been more so in my masculine energy, just probably because of where I'm at in my life and whatever. And I was just thinking to myself, like, and that doesn't, like, because I'm thinking about what Demi Lovato said of, like, today I feel masculine, so I'm a man. And it's like, that's where I feel like people are taking it too far. And on top of like taking it too far, they're not understanding how energy works. So we all have masculine and feminine energy within us, right? And it is our job through the healing process to mend both masculine and feminine energies within us, because usually, of course, there's wounds from either mother or father or both, usually both. And so that's kind of part of the healing process. It has nothing to do with the physical, or body parts, or it's energy. So just because I'm in my masculine energy doesn't mean that all of a sudden I have a penis. See how that works? So I think people are getting confused because at this point, these labels are overboard. I mean, they really are. Some of them are overboard. She and he, they and them. I think we need to get to a point in our society where we can just be like, hey, that's a human. Fuck these retarded labels. Like, and I'm not saying get rid of the labels, but a part of the ascension process, and when you get to more of a self-actualized place through healing, you come to understand that, again, nothing is real. We all created this, and therefore the meanings and narratives that we attach to things, like putting labels on things, is something derived from humans. It's derived from, someone created it at some point along the line. So my point in saying that is to say, I think we've gotten to this place of, wanting to label everything as a part of that being, or as that being a part of identity, and things like that. And don't get me wrong, I guess those things for sure contribute. But when you think about ego, your identity is not even real. You're like, who you think you are is not even real. So when you think about people placing these labels and being so adamant to have people using specific labels, and I know some people would look at me and be like, well, would you be mad if somebody called you a he or that? No. It doesn't mean anything except for what we've attached to it. So no, I don't need a specific label to let me know, like, that I am just Kate. I don't need a specific label to tell me how I'm feeling energetically. And I think that's where people are really, really confused, because this energy stuff has nothing to, well, it has to do with the physical, but not in the way that humans are thinking. They're thinking that I don't even know. I don't know what the fuck humans are thinking. I think that, again, the other thing about this is that it is important to place labels, because that gives meaning to things, or brings meaning, or, like I said, understanding. But like I think I was trying to say earlier, you get to a certain point in your ascension where that's not really necessary. Like I'm saying, like, you get to a point where it's like, I don't really care how society sees me. I don't care if society views me as a so-called Caucasian or black person or green, blue, pink. I mean, if we're talking about like physical eyesight, and obviously that applies the actual color, but my point is the meanings that we then place on those terms are fake. And on top of it, some of them are just downright fake. I mean, you think about it, when we call black people, they're not black. They're brown. They're melanated. They have darker skin tones. I mean, why? So you get what I mean? So we took that label, put it on a group of people, and then added meaning to it, and that's why it is what it is right now. So literally everything means nothing, and nothing means everything. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it doesn't mean anything. It means what we attach to it. And don't get me wrong, of course there's things like, historical things and terms and stuff like that, and of course that's important to recognize those things, and how certain meanings that have been placed on things have then led to traumas. Like, we obviously want to make sure that we are addressing those things, of course. And I think the need to always label something or identify with something is the issue in and of itself, because that's ego. That's your ego is who you think you are, okay? So Demi Lovato saying, oh, I feel like a man today, or I feel masculine today, so I'm a man. Well, that's your ego, and you made that shit up. That's a narrative that you attached to a feeling, an energy, actually, that you're possessing in that moment, or that you're, more so, it's not possessing, it's like you're just kind of shifting into it. Again, that happens after healing, depending on context, where you might be. It also can point to trauma. So if she's, sometimes sometimes people go through traumas and they end up more in their masculine energy and very tough and kind of a harder exterior, and they're kind of in their masculine energy because they've been hurt when in their feminine energy. So that can also be a trauma response of like, I'm going to get, kind of be more in my masculine energy as a defense mechanism too. But long story short, the point in this video is just I've been wanting to make this video for a while, and I think we are doing a disservice to ourselves. We're doing a disservice to the world around us, because if you think about it, we're so focused on all these labels, all these meaningless, things that we place meaning on. And then the meaning we place on them, unfortunately, this is the problem, is that if other people don't identify with that same meaning or don't agree, then it becomes an issue. Or, yeah. So I think that part of the ascension process and part of awakening is getting to a place where you transcend all of that. Like, it's kind of like, I'll give you an example. What I feel like when I tap into the energy of feeling into the 3D world versus the 5D, I almost have this like image of like I'm floating above everything and kind of like looking down. That's literally kind of the image I'm getting in my head of like, and it's not to be like, oh, I'm better than, or I'm looking down on people. No, it's when you ascend, you see the bigger picture and you realize and recognize things for what they are, which is really only as deep as the meaning we give to them, which again, lots of factors there that can contribute to that. 1111, I just looked at that. But at the end of the day, I think that the reason that these labels become so damaging is that they become a replacement or almost like a badge of who we say we are, but it's actually covering up who you really are, which has nothing to do with gender, or, I mean, sort of, but I mean, it does, but like, not in the sense of like your emotions and what's deep within you and like character and things like that. I think that's where people rob themselves of reaching their full potential because they confine themselves to a box based on these labels instead of just releasing control and saying and understanding at the end of the day that, and again, this is not to say, of course you want people to respect you and respect what you want to be called and such. I totally get that, and I definitely, you got to make sure you advocate for that. And it's coming to a place of also understanding that if people don't, it has nothing, like, how do I put this? It doesn't change who you are. If they don't, it doesn't change who you are. So, like I said, if somebody were to call me he tomorrow, okay, that means nothing to me. It's a word. We placed meaning on it. It doesn't change who I am at the end of the day. It doesn't change who I identify with deeply at my core, which at the end of the day ultimately boils down to energy. It's the energy within us. How do I know this? I'm a light worker. I'm an alchemist. I work with energy, and I think that all of these labels have now become distractions and, like I said, narratives and meanings that we have placed so that we can feed our ego instead of healing the wounds and digging deeper and saying, you know what, outside of being a she, he, they, whatever the fuck, who am I? I mean, I is not even real, but who am I at my core if you take away all of those labels? Who and what I am? What am I? Who and what am I? And understanding that these labels, they contribute to your identity, but at the end of the day, these labels are not ultimately who you are. So I think it's kind of becoming a mask or a cover up for some people, I almost want to say, to not have to look at what led them there in the first place, if that makes sense. And that could be with any kind of label. People who consider themselves emo. It's just a random example. I'm emo. Like, you think about kind of kids, I remember kids in middle school kind of going into that phase, and it was usually it was a trauma response. I mean, it was a response to feeling like you don't fit in or feeling kind of like you're an outsider type of a thing. So my point in saying this is humans created that. That wasn't even a real thing. This was based on, maybe people picking on people who dressed a certain way, and then it got labeled or whatever. I mean, I don't know if people were picking on, I don't know. I don't know how people treat emos or whatever. My point is, these things that we claim as being our identity or parts of our identity, essentially, a lot of these things are just kind of like what Richard Granum was talking about in the video he just posted, trauma responses. It's a trauma response. And it's not surprising, because I think that especially in this day and age, teenagers and kids are exposed to so much, to the point of, it's a lot different than back when I was in high school, when, yeah, people were like bisexual and all this other stuff, but I think because things have become so open and so how do I put this? I think because things have become more open, that's how they've become more confusing for kids, because there's a lot more blurry lines. There's a lot more gray area than there was when I was growing up, and that's what it is. It's like there's a lot more to choose from for kids these days, and when you think about identity development and teenagers, like, it's a big time when they're developing their sense of self. So you see some of these kids, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like if you transition pre age of 18 that this means this is you, but I did look up the research and the statistics, and there was some pretty large number, maybe 60% or more, of kids under the age of 18 that transition end up essentially regretting that later on. Now, I take statistics lightly because the world we live in, you never really fully know. But that would make a lot of sense to me, because when you think about the identity and when it develops and how it develops, that is the main period from like 12 to 18, 12 really to 25, honestly, in my opinion. But mostly those teenage years, especially, there's a lot of confusion. So then that's where you experiment with trying on different identities as you integrate your inner world and really connect with yourself. So the